Hello and thank you all for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour. With the news, I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says Ethiopia could be a model for others if the current generation develops the culture of volunteerism. The first batch of 10,000 youth volunteers that were trained on community-based volunteer services have graduated today. Haptamu Ashagwe has more.
Speaking on graduation ceremony, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said if the new generation adopts the concept of generosity, they can build vibrant nation. Appreciating volunteer young graduates, the Premier further said it's a big honor to serve the nation through the community.
ወዶ በነፃ መስጠት መታደል ነው ለሁሉም የተሰጠ ነገር ቢሆንም
It is honorable to cultivate generosity to others. Generosity is given cherished to all, but it is often impossible to provide it to others. You are among the 100 million Ethiopians who are young, energetic and able to do good to the needy. I want to assure you that the decision that you made to give volunteer community service brings remarkable achievement.
ክብር እንዲሰማችሁ ይህም ስጦታ ደግሞ ፍሬ እንደሚያፈራ ላረጋግጥላችሁ ፈልጋለሁ.
The Prime Minister noted that every citizen needs to struggle to eradicate poverty by avoiding idleness and improving the working culture of the society at large. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed called upon the youth to exert collective efforts to curb the ongoing media campaign against the sovereignty of Ethiopia.
እቺን ሀገር ካላቆምናት እዚህ ካልቀጨናት በስተቀረ አሁንም
we don't strictly preserve the sovereignty of the nation today. There is a high defamation on the air. There is a high defamation on the air that can potentially demolish Ethiopia's exemplary image that has been a pride to other Africans. Ethiopia is an exemplary nation to other countries. Today, I want to assure you that despite any small or big noises, as well as little or big lies, you, the young generation, can take the nation as a vibrant nation to remain exemplary to other black people like our forefathers and mothers did. There is no ultimate force in the ground that can stop us from our journey of prosperity and from being examples for our remarkable achievements amid turbulent times.
Minister of Peace Muferiat Kamil, for her part, urges the general public to capitalize solidarity as well as to cement mutual understanding among citizens to take the country to the next level.
ወጣቶች ሀገራቸውን በተግባር ቀለመ ብዙ ባህለ ብዙ
Firstly, a country can stand as a nation when trust is built among its people. To realize this hard fact, knowing each other, maintaining solidarity, as well as helping each other is critical. This national community-based volunteerism program is a kind of program to put the concept of this hard fact into everyone's soul.
The Ministry of Peace, cooperatively with other stakeholders, has been providing trainings on ethics, job creation, mindset, and cultural communication training topics for over 10,000 volunteer youth for about 45 days.
A prominent writer, Jeff Pierce, stated the TPLF-troll army has done a brilliant job of intimidation for months against its chosen targets. He wrote deep analysis on one-sided reports from the media and others about the situations in Tigray. Emmanuel Jorge presents it.
Jeff Pierce first wrote on the propaganda of Graziani about Tito Miniti, an Italian pilot during the fascist invasion of Ethiopia. He wrote this in the strive to demonstrate the reality about reports widespread about TPLF's retaking Aksum in different institutions. The short version of the story goes like this. In late December of 1935, somewhere around the Hara region, Miniti's plane went down in the desert. Some Ethiopians found and dragged him to a village called Bur, and then they tied him to a tree. They cut off his fingers, and as he endured this agony, they strapped and castrated him. Then they let him to bleed to death, after which they cut up his body and put his head on a bayonet. There were witnesses. The witnesses lied. None of the lurid stuff probably ever happened. We can be fairly confident of this for several reasons, but the main one is that in time, Miniti's corpse, along with that of his single passenger, was eventually discovered more than 650 feet from the plane wreckage. And all the stories, all the propaganda, the sculpture and the airport named in his honor were based on bullshit. Jeff goes on writing about his cross-checkings, saying, and stupidly gullible politicians policymakers and intelligence officials in Washington, London, Ottawa, and elsewhere. Wednesday this week, Jeff spoke for a few minutes by phone with the CEO of Ethiopian news agency Saife Deriba, who insists there was no massacre and calls Amnesty's report a barrage of misinformation.
Consistent witness testimonies and corroborating evidence make it plausible that hundreds of residents were killed. Many residents said they volunteered to move the bodies on carts.
He says reporters for the INA were in Aksum from November 29 to 30 and saw no signs of fighting, let alone widespread and indiscriminate killing. In fact, they spoke to servants for the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. According to them, things were subdued, with folks enjoying the celebration of St. Mary peacefully. There was fighting between the TPLF and the Federal Army weeks before, says Saife, with the TPLF heavily attacking Aksum Airport before being pushed out by government forces. There are certain things about Amnesty's report that simply don't add up. Does anyone else find this next bit awfully strange? On the day that a horrible massacre supposedly took place in the middle of the town, Debretsion Gebremichael was bold enough to send text message to Reuters claiming the TPLF had not only downed a federal military plane and captured its pilot, but that it had retaken Aksum. Well, then we still have a problem, because Amnesty's witness claimed TPLF fighters were attacking Eritreans on the mountain of Maikoho that morning, and some local youth rallied, joining the fight with improvised weapons such as knives, sticks, and stones. Notice how heroic this all sounds. But now we come to the obstacle. For there to be a massacre, the TPLF has to lose this skirmish, because by 3 to 4 p.m. we are told Eritrean trucks entered Aksum and their soldiers went on a rampage. He wrote, "Let's say the skirmish at Maikoho really happened, but the TPLF lost as in the Amnesty report. That means Debretsion lied to Reuters months ago about retaking Aksum. If they did retake Aksum, when did it happen? Because by 3 to 4 p.m., Eritrean tanks and trucks were supposed to be entering the city, and one of the Amnesty's witnesses claims the killing began around 4 p.m., was carried out on a large scale and continued until the evening. Now, if the TPLF had retaken Aksum but were pushed out by the Eritrean forces, they presumably would have seen this alleged wholesale slaughter being carried out even as they retreated. Because according to the report, it happened almost immediately. So, are we supposed to believe these horrors somehow slipped Debretsion's mind when he texted Reuters, and worse, that they left the people in Aksum to their fate? These, of course, are not just lies, but stupid lies at that. A machine gun is a spray weapon you fire away, you won't always hit what you aim at. That means when investigators and reporters finally get a close look at Aksum, we'll find the holes and damage caused by the machine guns. Hell, we'll find a damned bullet sunk into stone and wood, etc. We'll find these alleged mass graves. Last summer, there were those of us who practically screamed at the top of our lungs over repeated massacres of Amhara people. We didn't face denial too often, we were just ignored. But we have photos of the grisly evidence, we have names, ages, dates, towns where they lived, etc. and the ethnic cleansing still goes on. What these victims lack is a sophisticated and efficient to the point of sinister PR machine. And the troll army of the TPLF has now seemingly convinced half the world that the victims of Maikadra were Tigrans, even though it was correctly reported when the story first broke that the perpetrators specifically targeted ethnic Amharas and Wolkites based, among other things, on their identification cards. You know who else backed that up? Amnesty. A man who helped to clear the bodies from the streets told Amnesty International that he had looked at the state-issued identification cards of some victims and most were Amhara. The truth is that Debretsion Gebremichael doesn't give damn about the people of Tigray. He told CNN in a phone interview, all sorts of acts of genocide have been committed in Tigray, so the most important thing is that an investigation must be conducted. It sounded so reasonable, doesn't it? Until you examine the logic. Doesn't it bother you at all that all your information is coming from the one side, those major news outlets such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Globe and the Mail in Canada are not even bothering to print responses from Ethiopian ambassadors, that they don't even bother to perform their due diligence to walk over to an embassy or consulate or pick up phone to get a code. The TPLF troll army has done a brilliant job of intimidation for months against its chosen targets. It is time to make their secret army in the diaspora community know what it is like to be afraid.
Ethiopia says government continues to highly prioritize providing life-saving humanitarian assistance in the Tigray region. A press release by Ministry of Foreign Affairs today indicates government is to take concrete measures to address the alleged human rights violations. Sintayo Tamrat has more from the statement of the press release.
In a press statement released late in the afternoon Friday on the latest situation in the Tigray region, the ministry indicated that with the successful conclusion of the law enforcement operation, the most important priority of the Ethiopian government in the Tigray region continues to be providing life-saving humanitarian assistance to the affected people. In this regard, the government has taken concrete measures to comprehensively respond to the dire humanitarian needs on the ground, including by reallocating its meager resources from other priority areas, and close to 40 billion birr has been allotted for food assistance. Therefore, it should be noted that the Ethiopian government is so far covering 70% of the food assistance from its resources, while only the remaining 30% is covered by development partners and NGOs, the statement explained. The ongoing relief operations have so far reached out to nearly 4 million people, and all-out efforts are being made to reach out to every single person in need in the region. Despite the progress made thus far, the government recognizes that the humanitarian needs on the ground remain enormously huge. That is why it is appealing to bilateral and multilateral partners to scale up their support. The government is ready to do the necessary needs assessment jointly with partners, the ministry said in the statement. Based on its continuous engagement with the international community, the Ethiopian government has made major policy decisions recently to address some of the concerns that have been raised. In this connection, the government has made its firm and unwavering commitment not only to provide unfettered access to the delivery of humanitarian assistance, but also to ensure its implementation on the ground. With the improvement of the security situation on the ground, most areas of the region are now accessible, and a notification process has been put in place to allow humanitarian actors to travel to the region and operate without much difficulty, the statement added. The government has made clear its unequivocal position concerning human rights abuses and crimes allegedly committed in the Tigray region. In this regard, it has reaffirmed its full commitment to undertake thorough investigations to get to the bottom of the issue and bring perpetrators to justice, it said. The relevant Ethiopian authorities and the Independent Ethiopian Human Rights Commission are undertaking the necessary investigative work that will enable the government to take concrete measures to comprehensively address the alleged serious human rights violations and bring the perpetrators of serious crimes to justice, the statement noted. In this context, the government not only welcomed the support of international human rights expertise, but also signaled the possibility of collaboration on joint investigations with the relevant human rights bodies. Discussion is underway with the relevant stakeholders to look at modalities for its implementation. Furthermore, the government is facilitating access to both local and international media to travel to the region and do their journalistic work. It is also committed to addressing any issues that may arise in relation to their work. Equally important is the need for both local and international media to follow the rules and observe the necessary code of conduct, the statement said. In conclusion, the statement said, the government is always ready and willing to engage with the international community in a positive and constructive manner to effectively respond to the humanitarian situation in the Tigray region. It appeals to the international community to understand the complexity of the challenge and work with the government to scale up the ongoing relief and reconstruction efforts to restore lasting peace and normalcy in the region. The ministry underlined that access is adequately created, hence it would be pointless to call for access anymore. The situation in Tigray calls for concrete actions, and that is food and medical assistance.
Arba Minch University proposed a smart city project for 500,000 residents. Speaker of Ethiopian House of People's Representatives, Taggese Chafo, said the project will have significant economic benefit for the city. Emmanuel Jorge presents the following story.
Initiated by scholars and investors originated from Arba Minch City, a smart city project has been prepared by Arba Minch University, considering the estimated 500,000 population of the city after 40 years. Speaker of the House of People's Representatives discussed with Gamo zone leaders on the project prepared by Arba Minch University to make Arba Minch and its surrounding favorable for the estimated number of residents in the city by 2060. The project aimed at preserving the area, restoring some damaged natural resources, building community-centered economy and further boosting up the town's current suitability for tourism and investment. It's stated that works are underway to participate local and diaspora investors in Arba Minch Smart City project, which requires huge amount of expense. Attending the discussion, Speaker of the House of People's Representative Taggese Chaffo said the project will have significant social and economic benefits for the country as it goes operational.
We have a system that enables us to run projects coming from the federal government, regional government, zonal and city administration, and from private investors together. We also have coordination office that will lead these activities. There will be platforms at least twice per year in which different scholars discuss on the performance of the project implementation. If we do that, nothing is impossible. We have seen projects finished in short period of time that launched by our Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Addis Ababa. This is great initiation for all of us in different localities. Not only in Arba Minch, but are not all stakers in different parts of the country performing such activities for their respective areas. We will prosper together. There is a potential in the talent.
About 180,000 people reside in Arba Minch City, which is blessed with abundant natural resources, including tourist attractions.
Ethiopian ambassador to Djibouti Birhanu Tsaggaye stated 64,000 metric tons of wheat, which Ethiopia had bought to provide humanitarian assistance in the state of Tigray, has arrived at Port Djibouti. The ambassador told ETV that with collaboration work among stakeholders, the embassy has been striving to transport the wheat for beneficiary in the Tigray state swiftly. Haptamu Ashagwe has more.
The port of Djibouti has been serving 90% of Ethiopian import and export products. On this move, currently over 64,000 metric tons of wheat arrived in port of Djibouti, and the wheat has been transporting into Tigray state.
Over 27,200 metric tons of wheat has transported from Port of Djibouti by using 583 trucks in the past 13 days. We are committed these 64,000 metric tons of wheat to our Tigrayan peoples quickly. Therefore, we have been working cooperatively with Ethiopian Embassy as well as Port of Djibouti to create conducive environment to transport the wheat timely.
Ethiopian ambassador to Djibouti Birhanu Tsaggaye for his part said the embassy has undertaken effective transporting mechanisms for these humanitarian assistances as one of the prioritizing activities.
ስንዴውም ለተቸገረና እርዳታ ለሚፈልግ አካል በጊዜ ካልደረሰ
If the wheat is not delivered timely for beneficiaries, it is a problem. Thus, except fertilizer transporters, our prime attention is to put direction to other transporting institutions to transport it effectively. As a result, the Trans-Ethiopian trucks are focusing on transporting only wheat product effectively.
According to the ambassador, other activities are well underway to address problems of infrastructure facilities from Djibouti port to Ethiopia to transport humanitarian assistance timely.
And finally, African countries are giving COVID vaccines to their